now who won.
Okay.
Drum roll.
Okay.
And the winner is Caitlyn Clark.
Clearly we want her out there. I think she draws so much attention and she's a phenomenal player. But at the same time, I think it's a great time for her to learn from the sideline.
Sophie Cunningham just broke the silence, and Lexy Hull followed with a heartfelt message that no one saw coming. Their announcement about Caitlyn Clark isn't just emotional, it's deeply personal, and it's left fans across the league holding their breath. These three women have formed one of the strongest bonds in the WNBA, but what they've just revealed changes everything. How did we go from triumph to heartbreak in a matter of days? Grab a seat as we reveal the emotional twist that just stunned the Indiana Fever. Caitlyn Clark's All-Star exit shocks fans. 17th July 2025 was supposed to be unforgettable, for all the right reasons. Indianapolis was glowing with pride, gearing up to host the WNBA All-Star Weekend. Every hotel was booked, every ticket gone within minutes, and every banner across the city carried the same name, Caitlyn Clark. The hometown sensation, just 23 years old, had taken the league by storm. Fans weren't just showing up for a game, they were arriving to witness a moment in basketball history. Clark had become a household name long before stepping into the WNBA. Her record-breaking run at Iowa had left college fans in awe, but it was her leap into the pros that confirmed what many already suspected. She was different. Fearless on the court, sharp with the ball, and inspiring with every move, she had quickly become the face of the Indiana Fever. Her rookie season laid the groundwork, but by her second year, she wasn't just catching up to league veterans, she was passing them. That became undeniable in early July when she was named WNBA Player of the Year at the ESPYs. The announcement sent shockwaves through the league as Clark stood above powerhouses like Breanna Stewart and Aja Wilson. For someone still so early in her journey, it wasn't just an award, it was a statement. A young star had arrived, and her time was now. So, when All-Star Weekend drew near, all eyes turned to Indianapolis. The three-point contest, Clark was the favorite. The All-Star game, she was captain. The narrative had practically written itself. But just as the stage was set, the story took a sharp, unexpected turn. Only days after lifting one of the sport's highest honors, Caitlyn Clark announced her complete withdrawal from All-Star Weekend. No contest, no game, no appearance on the court. The announcement hit like a thunderclap. How could a moment of triumph so quickly collapse into silence? Fans, teammates, and reporters were all left asking the same question. How did everything change so fast? Could something more serious be unfolding behind the scenes? Keep watching to find out what really led to this sudden and shocking decision. The hidden heartache behind Caitlyn Clark's sudden exit. It happened quietly during a tough matchup against the Connecticut Sun. Caitlyn Clark began moving with less intensity, a wince flashing across her face as she clutched her side. At first, it seemed minor, maybe just fatigue. But whispers quickly turned into concern as she limped toward the bench, visibly struggling. It soon became clear. She had aggravated a groin injury she'd been carefully managing for weeks. Her coach, Stephanie White, assured the public she'd be evaluated closely. But no one imagined the outcome would be so devastating. Just days earlier, Clark had stood in the national spotlight, named WNBA Player of the Year at the 2025 ESPYs, celebrated as one of the youngest to ever claim such a title. And now, she was pulling out of everything. No All-Star game, no three-point contest, and no moment under the arena lights in front of her home crowd in Indianapolis. Her announcement on July 17th sent shockwaves through the basketball community. The timing couldn't have been more painful. Clark's statement was brief, but heartfelt. Using only a few words and heart emojis, she let her fans know how disappointed she was and how important her health needed to be. Though sidelined, she made it clear she would still attend the festivities, cheering from the sidelines with the same fire she brings to the court. It was a difficult, yet mature decision, one that showed her commitment to the long game, not just her own career, but to her team as well. With Clark stepping down from the contest, someone had to step up, and the WNBA didn't need to look far. Lexy Hull, Clark's Fever teammate, was tapped to take her place. Though quieter in the headlines, Hull had been quietly delivering one of her best seasons, particularly from beyond the arc. Her stats spoke for themselves, one of the highest three-point shooting percentages in the league, and coaches knew she was more than capable of rising to the moment. But even as the spotlight shifted toward Hull, she too was battling a private heartbreak. Just days before the announcement, she lost her beloved dog, Maggie, who had been with her for 14 years. It wasn't just a pet, it was family. Hull shared the news on social media, posting black and white photos with Maggie and writing a simple, emotional message. "The sweetest Mags, home won't be the same without you," she wrote. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Thousands of fans offered condolences. But two replies stood out. One from Caitlyn Clark, simply saying, "Love you," and another from teammate Sophie Cunningham, who wrote, "No Lex, I'm sorry." In a world where competition is fierce and pressure never lets up, these small moments revealed a much deeper story, one of true friendship and emotional strength. This wasn't just a basketball team, it was a sisterhood. They celebrated each other's highs, but more importantly, they showed up for the lows. Hull's grief wasn't something she had to carry alone, and that support echoed through every practice, every press conference, and every post. These weren't just teammates, they were lifelines. And so, as Lexi Hull prepared to step into the contest with a heavy heart, and Clark prepared to support from the sidelines instead of leading on the court, fans began to see something more powerful than stats or trophies. They saw heart, they saw loyalty, they saw what happens when the game pauses, but the bond between players doesn't. And in the midst of injury, loss, and sudden change, was Sophie Cunningham the quiet force holding it all together when no one else could? Stay tuned to find out. The unbreakable bond between Clark, Cunningham, and Hull. Sophie wasn't just known for her grit on defense or her ability to get under opponents' skin, though she did both with remarkable skill. What truly set her apart was her fierce loyalty. Earlier in the season, when Caitlyn Clark took a rough hit during a game, it wasn't a coach or referee who stepped in first. It was Sophie. She jumped to Clark's defense without hesitation, confronting the situation head-on. That moment earned her a fine from the league, but praise from fans who saw something deeper, someone who didn't just play with passion, but protected with heart. From that point forward, Cunningham wasn't just seen as a teammate. She was viewed as a leader, someone who stood in the gap when it mattered. And it wasn't just Caitlyn she showed up for. She was always checking in on Lexi Hull, too, especially in the emotional days following Maggie's passing. Cunningham quietly took on a big sister role, building a shield around the younger players and making sure no one ever felt alone, whether it was in practice, on the sidelines, or through private texts filled with encouragement. Sophie was a constant. That closeness didn't go unnoticed. Fans picked up on the trio's special chemistry and gave them a nickname, Tres Leches. It was playful, inspired by the popular dessert, but the meaning ran deeper. It symbolized sweetness, strength, and three distinct flavors blending perfectly together: Clark, Cunningham, and Hull. One explosive star, one fearless protector, and one silent warrior. Together, they became the emotional core of the Indiana Fever. Sophie embraced the nickname fully. She even wore a custom shirt printed with cartoon versions of the three of them. Bright smiles, bold colors, and all. The design went viral almost instantly, and fans started showing up to games wearing their own versions. But behind the fun, the shirt was more than a cute tribute. It was proof that what they had wasn't just a professional bond. It was real friendship. Whether celebrating a huge win or navigating heartbreak, these three women had each other's backs. Their connection went beyond drills and game plans. It was built on trust, time, and shared experiences both on and off the court. But to understand how this powerful trio came to be, we need to take a look at how Sophie and Lexi began their own journeys with the Indiana Fever. How Sophie and Lexi found their place beside Caitlyn Clark. It wasn't just friendship that united Tres Leches. It was shared battle scars, quiet grit, and the kind of inner fuel that can't be taught. Sophie Cunningham didn't arrive in Indiana looking for a fresh start. She arrived hungry for disruption. After 6 seasons with the Phoenix Mercury, she'd grown used to the rhythm of routine, to walking into a locker room where she already knew how things worked. but the fire that once drove her to dive for loose balls, trade elbows, and shout louder than the crowd had started to dim. She didn't want to be comfortable. She wanted to feel the pressure again. Indiana offered that, a young roster, a city aching for revival, and most importantly, a team unafraid to let leaders lead. So she came roaring in, sharp-tongued, loud-laughing, and unafraid to throw herself into a new role. Even in college, that was Sophie's signature. Back at Rockbridge High in Missouri, she had bulldozed her way through 4 state championships, turning expectations into stepping stones. Her college career at Mizzou only sharpened that edge. 129 straight starts, over 2,000 points, and a reputation for playing like every possession was personal. The WNBA was never going to be easy, but for Sophie, difficulty was fuel. She wasn't the flashiest, she wasn't the tallest, but she was relentless. That same energy, audacious and fearless, quickly made her the emotional anchor in Indiana, especially as Caitlyn Clark's stardom began to explode. But where Sophie was fire, Lexy Hull brought quiet precision. By the time she joined the Indiana Fever in 2022, Hull had already carved her name into Stanford's legacy with a chisel of focus and tenacity. Drafted 6th overall, a surprise to many who predicted her going late in the first round, Lexy didn't walk in with fanfare. She walked in with receipts. Her college years were a masterclass in consistency: Pac-12 championships, Final Four appearances, and a national title in 2021 that silenced every doubter. She wasn't the kind of player who needed headlines to prove her worth. She let the scoreboard do it for her. What set Hull apart wasn't just her stats, it was her stamina. Game after game, season after season, she delivered. Double-doubles, defensive lockdowns, and clutch shooting when it mattered most. Her junior year alone saw her drop 24 against UCLA, 21 on Louisville in the Elite Eight, and a game-saving double-double in the championship match against Arizona. By her senior year, she was a 3-time All-Pac-12 selection with more than 36 points in a single tournament game. Lexy never needed to talk big. She just showed up and did the work, and that's exactly what she brought to Indiana. At first glance, Sophie and Lexy couldn't have been more different. One was bold and brash, the other measured and meticulous. But on the court, their chemistry was unmistakable. Both understood what it meant to carry weight without asking for credit. And when Caitlyn Clark arrived, a generational talent with the eyes of the world watching, it was these two who formed the backbone behind her spotlight. Sophie protected it. Lexy steadied it. Their bond wasn't forced. It formed in the grind, post-practice shooting drills, late-night hotel conversations, and the kind of quiet support that only shows itself when no one else is looking. Tres Leches wasn't just a nickname. It was a survival tactic. Each one brought something the others needed. Clark's flair, Cunningham's fire, Hull's focus. Together, they weren't just teammates. They were a force. But what made their connection unshakable? Was it forged not in the spotlight, but in the quiet battles they faced when no one was watching? Keep watching to find out how loyalty and loss forged a fierce bond. It started with small moments, the kind most people never see. Like when Caitlyn Clark, fresh off winning one of the biggest honors of her career, learned she would miss the All-Star weekend due to injury. It was supposed to be a milestone, a moment she'd worked toward for years. But instead of celebration, she found herself sidelined, watching the game she loved unfold without her. The disappointment was sharp, but what followed was quietly powerful. While fans flooded social media with well wishes, it was her teammates who made sure she didn't face it alone. Sophie Cunningham had always been the team's emotional compass. Fiery when needed, soft when it mattered. And when Caitlyn was struggling, Sophie was right there. She didn't offer rehearsed encouragement or cliches. She simply showed up, checking in, cracking jokes, keeping things light but grounded. Her support wasn't loud, but it was constant. A teammate who knew when to speak and when to simply be there. Lexi Hull, meanwhile, was carrying her own quiet heartbreak. Just days before the Fever returned from a grueling road stretch, Lexi lost the dog that had been with her nearly her entire life. It wasn't something that made the sport's headlines, but it was something that cracked her world. That dog had seen her through high school finals, college pressures, and her early days in the league. Its absence left a silence she couldn't shake. But that's where the true strength of this team began to show. Because even as Lexi grieved, she never stopped showing up for the people around her. She offered Caitlyn gentle encouragement, small gestures of kindness that cut through the noise. No grand speeches, just the steady presence of someone who understood what it meant to carry pain while still choosing to care for others. What united Sophie, Lexi, and Caitlyn wasn't a winning streak or locker room speeches. It was the quiet stuff. The shoulder squeezes before tip-off. The texts that said, "I got you." The small acts of care that reminded them they weren't alone. They didn't just wear the same jersey. They shared the same weight and made sure no one had to carry it alone. Fans took notice, not because of stats or highlight reels, but because of how they carried each other through hard days. It wasn't about who scored the most or who got the spotlight. It was about love, real, visible love. In the way Sophie defended her teammates, the way Lexi showed up despite her grief, the way Caitlyn found the strength to smile again because of the people around her. Together, they weren't just playing the game. They were showing everyone what it really means to be a team. How Indiana Fever built a culture of heart. In the same breath that fans marveled at Caitlyn Clark's highlight reels and Lexi Hull's sharp shooting, something quieter but far more powerful was unfolding behind the scenes. Something that doesn't show up in stat sheets but changes everything. Before Sophie Cunningham's arrival, the Indiana Fever were talented, yes, but raw. The foundation was there, but the walls hadn't quite risen. A group of skilled athletes struggled to find not just their rhythm, but their identity. Then came Cunningham, not with fanfare or forced leadership, but with the kind of steady human energy that quietly shifts the entire room. Her presence wasn't loud, it was consistent. She showed up early, checked in without being asked, cracked jokes that turned into inside lingo, and offered wisdom without ego. The result? A once fragmented roster began to cohere into something rare, a team that played like a family. Lexi Hull's evolution mirrored that transformation. Once seen as a utility player, Hull became one of the league's most dependable shooters, nailing threes at nearly 49% accuracy. But her breakout wasn't just about mechanics. It came from confidence, a belief cultivated by a locker room that made her feel seen, supported, and free to take her shot. That kind of belief can't be bought or taught. It has to be built, one genuine connection at a time. And while Clark's temporary absence due to injury would have derailed most young teams, Indiana didn't unravel, they tightened. Roles became clearer, trust deepened. The chemistry didn't fade, it flourished. What looked like survival on the outside was actually transformation. The Fever weren't just holding on without their superstar, they were evolving because they had built something stronger than a one-player system. They had heart. One powerful moment told that story better than any press release. After a heartbreaking personal loss for Hull, Cunningham responded not with rehearsed sympathy, but with a rawness only real friendship can offer. Around the same time, despite her own frustrations on the court, Clark made sure Hull knew she wasn't alone. That bond between the three, Clark, Hull, and Cunningham, sparked something bigger than basketball. It became a heartbeat that pulsed through the entire franchise. Fans noticed, and they responded. Social media turned the trio into legends, not because of celebrity, but because of authenticity. Fans dubbed them Tres Leches, a name that began as a playful nod but quickly became something more. Artworks, highlight reels, memes, and even custom merch followed. Cunningham's Tres Leches shirt sold out in hours, not for the logo, but for what it represented: community, loyalty, and joy. Every high five, every shared glance, every silent nod during timeouts started to feel like rituals. You couldn't script the trust between them if you tried, but the ripple effect extended beyond their trio. Young players took note, veterans around the league did too. Free agents began circling Indianapolis not just because of what the Fever were building on the court, but because of how they were building it. A place where you weren't just valued as a player, but as a person, where wins were celebrated, yes, but humanity was prioritized. Their story is one of organic growth, not overnight success. It's what happens when teammates stop acting like colleagues and start living like sisters. It's in the subtle looks exchanged after a tough possession, the way Hull finds Clark without needing to scan the court, the trust Cunningham shows when letting a younger player take the final shot. That's not a strategy, that's soul. As Indiana Fever continue their season, there's a momentum you can't measure in standings, a pulse that beats louder with every game. But what do you think truly transformed the Indiana Fever? Was it talent, or the unshakable bond between Clark, Hull, and Cunningham? We'd like to hear your take. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.